Hey guys, we have Rachel on. This was literally probably one of the first ones that I did, and this was back when like if they had any screw up to it, like a glitch or anything like that, like I didn't want to publish it. This is my OCD days before I realized that, like, hey, it's not that bad. And I honestly don't remember what was bad with this one, and this might have been just one that I forgot to post. That might be the only one actually, because I totally forgot that I did this, but I looked it over and it's not even that bad. But again, here's Rachel, everyone. Enjoy.
Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guest today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Rachael Heffner on the podcast. She's an IFBB Women's Physique Pro coming to us all the way from Indiana. And I mean, I can't wait to hear her story, everyone, because if you just go and, I'll leave a link to her Instagram page down below. If you just go and check it out, just the transformation that she's made is just so inspiring. And I can't wait for her to share that with you. But first of all, Rachel, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for letting me be here.
Absolutely. So first of all, I got to ask, what's the weather like in Indiana today?
It is rainy and crappy and cold, so not fun.
I was going to say, I'm lucky because I'm about an hour away, but there was a place in Minnesota up here that got 21 inches of snow over the last 2 days. And I think we have a total of like 8 or 9. So I was out shoveling this morning, but it's definitely not too bad. But yeah, it's like 30 degrees here, but it's going to be getting, I don't even want to talk about it in January when it gets to like negative 20 degrees. And it's not fun. And I hate my life then. And everything just becomes miserable and cold. Yeah.
I would much rather have this rain than snow. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yep. One of the reasons why I started this podcast is because, I like to hear other people talk about how much better their lives are than me. So, that's one of those. No, I'm just kidding. But before we get into, the winter woes, because that's a whole podcast in and of itself.
Yeah.
Why don't you give us your backstory and what inspired and motivated you to get in shape and adapt this lifestyle?
Yeah. So long story short, when I was in college, it was like the fall of 2010. I went to Ball State as a TCOM major. Has nothing to do with anything that I do now. And I just had a really like crappy living situation. I wasn't very happy. Like I was overweight. And I ate everything. Like I guarantee you I gained the 15 plus, the freshman 15. And so I kind of removed myself from the bad living situation and realized that I was extremely unhappy with my life and where it was going. So I switched my major, I switched rooms. And then when I was home for winter break, I remember distinctly looking at myself in my laptop, like screen when like a movie went dark or something. And I was just like, man, I can't live like this anymore. And so I just decided, I was like, okay, I'm going to lose this weight. And I had said this thousands of times before because I had been overweight pretty much my whole life. I was a chubby kid. That's just, how it was. And so I texted my new roommate and I was like, hey, I'm going to lose weight when we get back. She was down for it. She was going to do it with me. And then the next day I went and bought shoes from Nike and my dad was like, what is that? And I said, oh, they're shoes. I'm going to lose weight when I go back to school. Like I'm going to start, really focusing on it. And he was like, I'll believe it when I see it. Okay. Cause he had heard it 1,000 times. So I was like, okay, like that one really lit a fire under my butt. So, and not to mention I had asked a boy out and he rejected me, because of the way that I looked. So that kind of lit a fire under my butt. And then my dad really like ignited that. And I was like, oh, I'm going to show everybody, like, forget you guys. And so when I went back to school, like I started, working out like 4 times a week, mostly cardio, just because I didn't really know quite what I was doing. I was just trying to eat better, be more active, move around. And since I was still in school, like I still allowed myself to have the weekends with my friends and, eat pizza with them or do whatever. I would just moderate it. And then after like a month, I had lost like 25 pounds because, when you're so heavy, originally it's really easy to lose weight. And I went home. I remember I went home for Valentine's Day and my dad was like, okay, I can get behind this one. And so like instead of like candy and stuff for Valentine's Day, he got me like granola bars and like socks and things that like to show that he, supported it. And then it's been just continuously change as time has gone on. I graduated in 2014. And that's kind of when I like started experimenting with the weight room, kind of learned a little bit. My dad was a weightlifter, so he kind of taught me what he knew. One of my boyfriends at the time taught me a little bit more about the weight room. And then in early 2017, I decided to get excess skin removal done. And that's when I met Adam, my coach. And he's also my boss. And he helped me lose like 25 to 30 pounds of whatever I could. And then before the surgery, and I got the surgery done in October of 2017. And then after that, it was really weird because I had spent all this time, focusing on losing weight and then focusing on doing the surgery. And then I was just like, well, what am I going to do now? I'm a very goal oriented person. And when I don't have any goals, it really freaks me out. So I was just like, well, what am I going to do now? And I had seen Adam prep himself for many different shows, and I had seen him prep his athletes. And I was like, well, you know what? Like, I've been doing this for 10 years. Like, I can do that. So I prepped for my first show in 2018, and I went to the Indiana State show, and I won Miss Indiana Women's Physique, and then I won my figure class, and then I did the Huge Flex, where I took both titles for overall, for figure and physique. And then it was kind of like, okay, well, which one? Where do I want to go from there? Do I want to stay in figure? Do I want to do physique? Personally, I enjoy physique a little bit more just because you get to flex a lot more. You get to do a lot more things on stage, and you don't really have to wear the heels. That's always nice.
I was just about to say that. Yep.
Yeah, that's always really nice. And then so we decided to continue me on with women's physique, and then after that we tried to pick a show and figure out which one was the best, and we landed on Miami, and the rest is history.
So I actually got in contact with you because Stephanie Marie and everyone, we've seen her on the podcast before. How did you meet her? What do you guys have any backstory together?
I mean, not really. We worked together, or we did. Not anymore. But she dated my coach for a while. And that's how we met each other. We were acquaintances. Plus, in Indiana, the fitness industry is really, really small. So everybody knows pretty much everything about everyone.
Yeah.
So especially with her being a women's physique pro and me going to become a women's physique pro, she helped me out with a few things. So.
Well, and she is what I like to call a brick shit house too. That's what I told her when she was on. She's massive, so that was. I mean, it was really awesome having her on, and she was a great guest. And I'm going to have her on in the future. But one of the things that I find so fascinating about your journey is that, I mean, you start out because, like I was talking about to you before, one of the biggest myths that I love to bust is, there's still, it's gotten better the last 5 years with Instagram, but there's still just so many women that have that fear that, if they walk into the gym and they pick up one weight, they're going to, put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And I mean, it's so not true. But like you said, when you got started, I mean, you were just doing the cardio, which is what a lot of women, I think, fall into. But what finally pushed you to all of a sudden make that change into weights? And once you found out that that myth isn't true, how do you like to respond to that? Because I bet you still hear that all the time from other women.
Oh, all the time. Like, I will have women come into the gym and be like, oh, I want to get toned. I want to put on a little bit of muscle. I don't want to be big. Like, I don't want to, look like that. And I tell women, I'm like, firstly, there's literally no way that you can become manly looking by lifting weights. All you're doing is helping not only your muscle maturity, your muscle density, but you're also helping your overall body. Like, you're going to be less likely to be injured. You're going to have a better stature because you're going to be able to stand up taller. Your muscles are going to be able to handle a lot more, so you won't be as tight or as stretched out, or you won't be as in pain moving around. And it'll also help you with anything in general in life too, like picking up things if you have a very physical job. It's more of heart health than anything. But I decided to get into the weight room. I remember that I had started losing weight, and I kind of had a little bit of excess skin, and I was doing research on how best to tighten that up without surgery, because I didn't really know if I was going to need it or not. And they said that lifting weights and doing a lot of core stuff like that would really help with strengthening that muscle and help with that elasticity in your skin. And I think that's where I got the idea. I was like, well, I guess I could try. Like, I don't really know too much about it. And like I said, my father was he was a big weightlifter at the time, a big power lifter. And so I kind of asked him for his opinion to show me a few things. And then in college, I took a few conditioning classes to learn, and fell in love with it. Fell in love with feeling sore and getting stronger. And like I said, I didn't get super, super serious about it until about 2016, 2017. But I can't imagine my life without it.
Well, and that also leads me perfectly into, I mean, the one thing that I think impacts women so much more positively working out wise than men is, I mean, that confidence boost that we talk about so many times on this podcast. I mean, every woman that I have on my podcast, health and fitness wise, I always ask them, how did you take that confidence boost that you get from working out and use it to impact every single aspect of your life? Because I always say that is the one thing that you can take from the gym, is that it just really helps out with your self-confidence. And especially being from where you were at before to where you're at now, how has that self-confidence and how has that drive really helped out in just your day-to-day life, not only with your health and fitness?
Oh man. Honestly, it's insane because you can even, and if you ever speak to Adam, you can ask him. I am a completely different person when I step on stage. It is like I have been there my whole life. Um, I would have never done that before. I would have never gotten, like, I can't imagine getting on the Dr. Oz show when I was heavier and being okay with just chatting it up, just because that's not who I was. I stayed completely like in the background. And now I'm like, hey guys, like come talk to me. What are you doing? Like I want to know everybody's life and story. And it definitely made me, I guess, open up a little bit more, to be able to learn about people, to talk to other people, to learn about their journeys and to help them too. And just use my experiences to help them further theirs.
Yeah, and that's incredible. And when you are getting started in the gym, I mean, I always like to say, if you were to walk into a gym and there's 100 people in the gym, there's 100 different ways as to how those people have gotten into shape. Whether it comes down to, I mean, their diet, their nutrition, how many reps they do, what exercises they do. So many little minute things add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. And I mean, if you were to walk up to someone and say, "What did you train for this body part? It looks amazing." What works best for them 99% of the time might not work as good for you.
Agreed.
What was that experience like for you when you were getting started? Was it just a lot of trial and error for you?
Yes, most definitely, especially with food, because I did live on campus at the time. So it was really learning about how to not necessarily cut things out, but how to moderate them or how to choose a better option. Or, even just as simple as like, I'm not going to take the shuttle to class, I'm going to walk instead. And just making these like little different choices to make me more active, to make me more heart healthy, to make me actually work for something if I wanted to, eat pizza with my friends later or something like that. Most definitely. It's my journey is completely different than majority of people's just because I did do this all on my own. I never had a trainer, I never had a nutritionist until I met Adam, who's my coach. So I had never had any of that before. I just walked into a gym and picked up a weight. I struggle when people tell me that the gym's really intimidating for them because I never felt that. I was just like, well, I'm here and I'm ready to go. So,
Well, here it was for me, but I have actually a pretty darn good excuse. So when I was a freshman in high school, my older brother was a senior and he was captain of the football team. So,
oh,
that's, I kind of have it where I walked in there and it was like everyone's eyes were on you. Cause like when everyone says like, when I always dispel that myth, but like no one really cares about you in the gym. I mean, everyone's focused on themselves. For me, it was actually like legit, like people like were like watching me, like seeing like what I would do. So that scared me a little bit, but yeah, so I understand when people say it, but yeah, in a general sense, yeah, I totally agree with you where, I mean, it's like, once you take that step in there and you realize that, like everyone is focused on themselves. I mean, for a lot of people, it's their only outlet to, to better
yeah.
themselves and help them get through the day. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't say that more, but I love this question because genetics, really are just a fascinating thing because I always say whenever someone starts working out, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much. And then they have that one body part that just lags behind that they have to train into oblivion to get it to catch up. I mean, I'll give you my examples. For me, my back, just because I had jobs all throughout college of, working in warehouses and lifting and loading stuff into trucks, you either got a really nice back or you quit. But I'm also 6'3", so I mean, my legs and my lower body are just shot where, I mean, I have to train them into overdrive just to get to look like any semblance like I've ever worked them out. I still have my friends at the gym now that say, "Oh, hey, Ryan, do you plan on working legs anytime this year?" And then I'm just like, "Oh, you guys are real funny. You guys saw me doing legs yesterday." But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
For me, see, mine's the opposite. My legs are very, very strong, always have been. They're like tree trunks. But I'm also 5'3", so I'm a very small person. So it's very easy for me to put on 5 pounds of mass on my legs. But my back was actually the hardest one for me, because that, I guess that and shoulders. I grew a lot in this last year when I was prepping for nationals. But my upper body, I was very asymmetrical for my first two shows, and the judges let me know that. Um, but I condition very, very well. So that's kind of the other reason I went with women's physique, because I can lean down very, very well, which is funny because I started at 300 pounds, and then my best quality is that I can lean out very well. But um, yeah, definitely my back. I feel like my back is definitely going to take some time, especially just because of muscle maturity as well. The older you get, the thicker it'll get.
Yeah, I mean, thank God you didn't even bring up calves, because I would say calves. That's the number one pet peeve of mine, where it's like you're either born with them or you're born without them. That is the most
It's
genetic muscle on the planet.
true.
Yeah.
I 100% agree because my calves are great.
Mhm.
I blame it on being 200 or 300 pounds for 20 years of my life. Though, so.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say if you're walking around with that, I mean, they're gonna get big after. Just like yeah, just like most of the people that I have on that either did like the ballet or something like that, where you're like, okay, just it's a given. But yeah, I always said I could inject pure muscle into my calves and they wouldn't grow an ounce. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. But we touched base on it a little bit. What would you say was the go-to nutritional change that you made, other than just not eating as much junk food or not pigging out as much? Which I mean, let's be honest, it's after the holidays, and I gained probably about like 5-10 pounds just in that 1 week alone. But so, what would you say is your go-to nutritional change that you made?
Definitely meal prepping. I started meal prepping. I didn't really know exactly like portion sizes quite yet, but I started meal prepping in I want to say 2013, when I moved off campus. And that really helped a lot because it helped me make sure that I always had a meal prepared. Like I said, the portioning sizing wasn't proper until I met Adam much later in the game. But definitely having that and making sure I always had food with me was very important, as well as water, like tracking how much water I drink. Um, because it's funny, I actually used to donate plasma in college for extra money, and they would tell me that I'm dehydrated. And so it didn't ever work. And here I am, like now I can drink like 3 gallons a day if I want to. And I'm like, well, I wonder what they'd say now. So
There'd probably be like too much water in it. They'd probably just be like, "Oh yeah,
right, I
it's
can't
too."
do that.
Yeah, yeah. I remember the good old days donating plasma in college to get some money, but probably the most undervalued thing that I don't think is talked about ever on Instagram, and it should be, is sleep. I mean, I always say I had the number one sleep specialist on the planet. He's one of my favorite guests just because he was from Oxford and he had one of those British accents where you felt like you gained 10 IQ points just from talking to him. Where
Absolutely.
it's just like I just even told him, I was like, I'm not even gonna say a word, you're just gonna talk the whole time. And I'm just gonna listen. It's like a workout for my brain. But we were talking about the importance of sleep. And I mean, especially when you get into bodybuilding, sleep is the most important thing when it comes to recovery. It's one of the most important things ever that you can do. I mean, getting that proper amount of sleep, I mean, is vital for any gains or any really changes that you want to make. What was your sleep like before when you were overweight, and how did you change it over time, or did it change at all?
Uh, I think it definitely changed. It's definitely a better sleep. I definitely like I used to snore really, really bad when I was heavier. And now I don't, unless I'm sick, obviously, or something. But I think that it's a heavier sleep than it used to be. I used to wake up a lot, and I still wake up every now and then, but it's very much a what's the word I'm looking for? A restful
Yep.
sleep.
Yeah. Well, and I always say too, when you're drinking that much water, you are going to get up like 2 or 3 times in the middle of the night too. That's just,
Exactly.
I mean,
Yes,
that's just
really the only
that's
reason
the
I
one
wake
thing
up
that I
late.
hated the most. Where I was just like, okay, I was like, like if when I mean, I'm still at home with my parents, and when I move out, I'm like, I'm just going to get a place that has a bathroom like literally 5 feet away from my bed, so I can literally just so I don't have to get up and walk all the way. Yeah, that is the
Yeah.
one thing that I really don't enjoy. But hey, you got to pull through it. But also, I mean, I always say one of the best feelings in the world is after you have a long hard day of working out or with work on top of that, and then you get that proper amount of sleep and you wake up and you feel like a superhero basically. So I mean, that's another reason why it's just so important. But the one thing out of this entire podcast that I'd say surprised me more than anything else is that I never would have guessed this in a million years, but for so many of these athletes, posing is the hardest thing for them. I mean, it's harder than their nutrition, it's harder than their working out. I mean, I like to compare it now to being a perfect driver, where you can be a great driver, you can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like?
It's been really good actually. I got really lucky with my posing, just because it's one thing that I took very naturally. So I had Adam teach me the posing very early on before I even started prep, because I wanted to make sure that that was the one thing that I didn't have to worry about on stage, when you're already worrying about making sure you're in the right place, listening for your number, making sure you're doing the right pose. So there's so many moving parts, especially when people are moving around you and you're moving, that was the one thing I didn't want to focus on. So I just wanted it to make it, I wanted to make it as natural as I possibly could. And so I every single time I worked out, I would do any or all of my mandatories during my sets and my reps. I would, during my breaks, I would do any and everything. And I actually, I started like or coaching posing to a few different girls, and I really enjoy it. Actually, I love the idea of doing routines, and I love the idea of teaching girls how to pose properly. Um, I wouldn't say that I'm not okay with doing men either, because I know the men's posing, but I would much rather prefer than go to Adam, just because he's been doing this 10 years. So I would feel much more comfortable.
Well, and you guys have so many more obstacles with like the like you said, the high heels that the figure and the bikini girls have to wear, and all that other stuff, and the posing's different. I mean, you have like open hands. You can't do yeah. It's just
Yeah.
it's really vastly different. But out of your physique poses, what's your favorite pose to do, and what's your least favorite pose to do?
Ooh. My favorite pose is either a side try or a back double.
Mhm.
Because my back, while it's not thick, it's very, it's extremely ripped. It gets shredded to the bone. So it's super cool to be able to show off. My least favorite is probably ab and thigh, just because it's kind of boring.
Well, and it's always I always say that's that one awkward pose where it's like
Mhm.
you can't make it look good. I mean, you can make it look good, but you can't make it look like not awkward when you're doing it.
Right.
It's like it's not.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't understand that. But teaching women, about posing, what would you say is probably the number one obstacle that you run into with a new person trying to learn posing?
It's definitely learning to contort your body, because it takes a lot, especially on your lower back, and having these girls hold it. Because sometimes you're up on that stage for 2, 3, 5 minutes. It just depends on how tight this or how stacked the classes are. So I mean, you might be standing on the sidelines, or even right in front as first call out for a while. So you need to be ready, and you need to always be prepared to get into a front relax, or always be prepared to be in the back relax and be there for a hot minute. And the other thing I would say is breathing. You do have to take really short, shallow breaths. That way you keep it tight the whole time. And that's very hard for a lot of people, because, especially when you're nervous, you don't think about that stuff.
Well, and plus you're all dieted down too. I mean, that's hard enough for people, even if they're just average people that haven't, gone through a prep. But when you're going through
Yeah.
that, I mean, that just adds on even more. And it's just the muscle memory too. Cause I mean, we've heard so many stories of, you get more sore from your posing practices than you do from your actual
Oh, yeah.
workouts, just because the human body is not meant to be in that flex state for that long of a time. But a question that I ask all of
Mhm.
my guests that come on, whether they be, my bodybuilders that I have on or my bands and musicians, for my bands and musicians, I always ask, what is that feeling like when you get to walk up on stage and perform live in front of, hundreds of thousands of people? That also applies to the bodybuilders that I have on. What is that experience like for you when you get to walk up on stage and, show off all that hard work that you've worked years on?
Man, it's indescribable, the feeling that you get when you finally get up in front of those judges, and get up in front of those people. Especially for me, just because for nationals, when I got up on the national stage, I it felt like I was finally closing a chapter on something that has been a almost a decade long of a story that I've been, constantly working, and constantly evolving, and constantly getting better. And so standing up there, it was very surreal. And even now, people will be like, "Well, oh my gosh, how do you feel?" And I'm like, "It doesn't even feel real. Like, it feels like it was a dream. It happened so fast, and it's been a wild ride. It's definitely, when you get up there, though, it's very overwhelming."
I can't imagine what that must feel like. But we talked about this a little bit prior too. I mean, I'm one of the palest people you'll ever meet in your entire life, being from the upper Midwest. And, I either get burnt to an absolute crisp or I get farmer's tan, where, I mean, let's be honest, that's not a real tan. And so I've never been tan a day in my life, but bodybuilders get to get tan. And I always find that fascinating. What is that feeling like for you? Because we hear so many stories of, you see muscles that you never even knew that you had. Everything really seems to pop out. What is that like for you when you get that tan?
Well, firstly, I have the same problem. I'm extremely fair. And so not only do I have to get a tan, but I have to get extra tans because I don't get dark enough. So this time I had like 7 tans, I think, 7 coats in total. over the 2 days. So it's literally like feeling like they're just putting mud on you toward the end of it. But it's definitely really cool. You can definitely see a lot more lines, a lot more striation. This is the leanest, or at the show was the leanest I had ever been, and I had never seen lines, like never seen striations in my quads before, and it was really cool to be able to see that. And you definitely see your muscles moving a lot differently. Seeing those fibers, they can move, over time, and you see them a lot better underneath those lights with that tan for sure. And the oil gives you a little shine.
Oh yeah. I mean, I always say to that, the only negative thing is that, like you said, it's like you're getting mud rubbed on, and you basically got to become a statue when that happens. You can't sit on anything, you can't lean up against anything. You got to bring your own bed sheets. I mean, just
Yep.
adding on to the checklist of what these competitors have to go through. But
Oh yeah.
you're a pro now, and I always love to ask all the pros that I have on my show, what was that experience like when they announced your name and you realized, oh my God, I'm a pro now, and I get to compete in pro shows?
Oh man, it's surreal. Like I think I placed second, and I just remember standing out there. I was like, "Are you guys sure? Like, is this real? Did I make it?" And then you get off stage, and you're just like, "Oh my gosh!" And you got all these people congratulating you, and it's a very surreal moment.
I mean, I just can't imagine what that must be like. But now we go to a fun question. What is your go-to post-show meal?
Ooh, I don't know. I So this one was a little different because I wasn't in a place that I'm normally from. Normally, I would hit some sort of burger place. I'm a big burger and fries type of girl. Right after the show, but we went to a place like Fogo de Chao. It was called Texas de Brazil,
Ooh.
somewhere in Miami. So it was a lot of meat. I honestly couldn't tell you what exactly I ate because I was so dehydrated that I had like focused on getting like 4 or 5 glasses of water in me, and then I had like a piece of bread, and I was like, so it was good food. But then, honestly, the best post show meal I had was breakfast the next day. That was amazing. I had cinnamon toast crunch grilled French toast. It was hands down the best food I'd ever had.
It's why it's my least favorite question to ask, because it just makes me want to. It just makes me drool, basically, and just makes me want
uh,
to automatically just stuff my face. But I mean, the another stereotype that I love to bust, or myth that I should say, about the fitness industry and bodybuilding that I'd love to bust, is that so many people don't understand that look that you guys put on stage is not a sustainable look. I
no.
mean, we've had so many guests come on, and they talk about how when they were getting started they might have thought that, but just it's really hard for them to adjust to that. And because I mean, you've dieted down, and just with all the hard work and the nutrition, I mean, you're not going to be able to maintain that. What has been that experience like, when you finally realize that, hey, I mean, because you can be told all the time by your coaches, like, hey, you're not going to be able to look like this all the time. You're not going to, but until you really experience that for the first time, you really, truly, I don't think, can really understand that. But what was that like when you first, got really dieted down and then you started gaining weight back? Was it a scary thing for you? And how have you adjusted to that as your career's gone on in bodybuilding?
It's definitely extremely hard, especially as a woman, because you see yourself hard and tight for months at a time. I do 5 6 month preps. That's what works best for me. And so you're seeing yourself like with abs, or with striated delts or whatever for so long, and then you slowly see yourself start to just gain this weight back, and it's very hard on your mental state, because I think it's even harder for women because we are we're taught we need to be small. We always need to be fit. With men can eat it, or can eat whatever and just put it into muscle because of that testosterone. But for us, it's a lot harder. So I think last year was really hard for me, and I definitely put on a little too much fat in my off season. So the goal of this off season, for me, as I prep to get ready for a pro debut, um, is to really stay a little bit leaner, just in like an athletic sense, to make my prep easier on me. But it's definitely a hard one. You just have to keep rolling with it.
How are you doing with the holidays?
Oh, I'm great. I've been eating everything.
Oh, okay, good, good.
I've been eating everything.
Yeah,
So I'm only a week post show,
yeah.
so I feel pretty good about it.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
ready to get back on track.
Oh,
Ready
yeah.
to get, ready to allow myself to have, the good stuff, because I still want to be able to enjoy my family and enjoy the holidays. But I'm also ready to work.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's. I mean, and I always say it's just like starting your own business. You got to spend money to make money. You got to put on weight if you want to put on muscle. I mean, those two just go.
Exactly.
They just go hand in hand. But two of the questions that I ask every single health and fitness guest that I have on for the first one, I mean, there were so many positive things that happened. You know, I started working out and getting bigger and stronger. But one of the negative things is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get
Yeah.
asked to open a lot of pickle jars or bottled water or anything that's sealed on tight. You're the go-to person. Like I
Yep.
said, I'm still at home for the next few months, and every time my parents come home with groceries, you know, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and carry in the groceries. Has that been a similar experience with you as you've made this journey where people just assume that you can help them out and do favors for them?
Oh, absolutely. Even today, I was with my family, and my grandma just like handed me this jar of salsa, and she was like, "Well, you're a pro now." I was like, "Okay." I just opened it, but yeah, I don't think they mean it like in a bad,
Oh
negative
yeah,
way.
absolutely, yeah.
Uh, but you definitely hear it a lot. Or, my nephews, they wrestle, and they're always like, well, my aunt, and da 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 da, she lifts weights and she's probably got more muscle than me, and da 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 da. I'm like, yeah, but you guys can probably take me down pretty fast.
No, yeah, and that's one thing too is that the general public doesn't. They sometimes confuse, you know, being a bodybuilder with being the strongest person alive. Where it's like, I granted, you know, I've had so many bodybuilders on that are super strong and can lift some huge weight, but I mean, power lifters, you know, that's what they're
Yes.
built for. So yeah, with that, that's 100%. But now, I mean. My favorite question to ask because you know for guys it's a problem but not nearly as much as it is for women the clothing when it comes to bodybuilding and living this lifestyle. I mean, if like I said, if you have big broad shoulders, dresses aren't your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time because if you have a big lower body and a small waist, jeans are not made for that. And the fact that you've gone through such a drastic weight loss transformation. And I'm going to add on even more to it. I mean, when you're on your prep, you have to have your own separate wardrobe, basically. How have you been able to, you know, find a clothing balance that works right for you without just going insane and spending, you know, millions of dollars on clothes?
To be fair, a majority of my life I'm spent in leggings, so
Yeah.
it's much easier. But jeans are actually very, very hard, especially for me because, like I said, my legs are tree chunks. My quads are just huge, but my waist is really small. So a little tip for anybody who's listening: Levi's makes very, very good jeans. They are a little expensive, but they will last you, and they are stretchy, and they will fit your waist very well. Women, if you are interested, the 721s are really good. Um, but originally, like when I first started losing weight, what I would do is I would just start going through my clothes like once every 3 months. And then I would either donate what I couldn't wear and then go through my friends who were doing it with me. And then I would use their clothes. So there was a lot of like moving parts. And then I would do, Plato's Closet or Goodwill, stuff like that for a while. Um, I would say the past, I don't know, 3-ish, 4-ish years, I've stayed pretty consistent with my size. Just losing fat and gaining muscle, so I've been able to kind of stay in the similar area. My upper has gotten a lot bigger, so it's been a lot harder. But like I said, a majority of my life I'm in workout clothes, so I don't even have to worry about it very much.
Yeah, and that is a positive too. I mean, leggings, like I said, have been, you know, the invention of the century for a lot of the women that we've
Yeah.
had on this podcast. But the mental aspect is vastly harder, especially with bodybuilding when it comes to the physical aspect, because physically, I mean, you can force yourself to work out. I mean, you can do it. The mental aspect though of, you know, just maintaining that mental picture and, you know, not going crazy, you know, just eating the same stuff and just doing the routine. But one thing that I find especially, you know, unique with you with your mentals is that I mean, when you're overweight, a lot of people that I've had on that have, you know, had massive weight loss, they still sometimes think of themselves as an overweight person because since you've lived your life for that long, I mean, you're just so used to that. What was that mental adjustment like, you know, when you started like seeing you're changing and you started seeing, you know, obviously where you're at right now, is it still hard for you to mentally just adjust to the changes that you've made in your life?
Sometimes it used to hit me a lot more than it does now, but every now and then, like I remember being in Miami and I was wearing like a crop top, and I feeling the need to like pull it down. And my friend was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't know. It must just be like fat girl brain or
Yeah.
something where you're just like, oh, I need to cover up." But here I am with like a six pack and haven't eaten anything except for 2 cups of coffee in the past 3 days while I'm waiting to get on stage, dry and dehydrated and looking great. But it's just that mentality sometimes will hit you. Um, but it doesn't hit me nearly as hard as it used to be. for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say just with that great change that you went through. I mean, I can't imagine. Sometimes you're just like, oh my god, I can't believe what I've done, because you basically lost like a whole person basically if you come and I mean,
Yeah.
it's just incredible. But how did you get on Dr. Oz first of all? Because I saw that on your profile and I was like, okay, that is amazing.
Yeah, that was a wild ride. So I was actually at a fitness summit with Adam in September in Indianapolis, and I got this weird, like, I'll get weird Facebook messages from people sometimes, and I don't really know how to take them, but I got this Facebook message from a guy named Greg, and he was like, "Hey, I work on Dr. Oz show. Like, I saw there's been a few articles written about my weight loss over the time." He was like, "I saw this article about you. I think that you would be a great fit to be on the show. Let me know if you're interested." And since I was in the middle of the summit, I couldn't really talk. So then I got another message from a girl named Emily, who was the producer, and she said the same thing. And then I was like, well, okay, that's a little bit non sketchy. So then I got an email from them. So I was like, that's even more 100%. Like, okay, this could be real. So I looked into these guys on Facebook, like saw where they worked, saw it was real, looked at their Instagram, make sure it was real. And then I reached out and I was like, hey, thank you so much. I would love to learn more about this. And that was in mid-September, and they actually pushed the segment back, and they were like, hey, whenever we're ready for it, we'll let you know. And I said, yeah, just, let me know. And it was like the beginning of October. They were like, hey, could you come out next week? And I was like, sure. So I went out there for it was literally the fastest like 28 hours of my life, and went out and got up super early in New York City, and then went to the studio, met with him, met with the whole crew. He's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Very down to earth. Like, even came up to me personally, knew my name, knew where I was from, knew Indianapolis, like made sure that he knew that I was very welcome there. And then our conversation on TV, normally you'd think there's a lot of edits and a lot of like, oh, let's backtrack and redo that question. There were none. I did it all in one take. It was so conversational and so easy that he was like, do you think we need to retake anything? And I said, no, I don't think so. And he was like, I agree 100%. So it was very easy to just talk to him and tell him my story. So it was a wild ride.
Well, you have a talent then, because I was going to say the same thing for our podcast that we're doing. We're not going to really have to redo anything because, yeah, it's just, I mean, it's been going good, but that is just so fascinating. And I'll leave a link to that clip for Dr. Oz, because that's so cool. And you're the first guest that I've ever had on the podcast that was on Dr. Oz. So I had to ask you about that. But the last couple of questions that I love to ask before we wrap things up. So, I mean, if someone were to walk up to you and say, Rachel, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Oh, I don't know. I'd have to really think about that one, because I love the sport, man. It's so much fun.
Well, I'll give you mine then while you think of it, because
Yeah.
one thing that I hear all the time is that if you were to do shows in back-to-back weeks, I mean, one show they might want a little bit more of a leaner look, another one they might want a little bit more of a fuller look. So it's kind of, if the judging was so much more on par with, every other type of show that they had, because, it's like good luck getting more fuller or good luck getting leaner over that 1 week that you have in between those shows. So that's the one that we hear all the time. But yeah, there's a few other ones too. But I'd say generally, yeah, they do a very good job with what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's true. I guess I just take because it's so subjective to the judges. I guess I just take that with a grain of salt, because everybody's so different. Like, they told me at nationals, they were like, basically, we just want you to get fuller. You need to grow. You need to thicken up. But that's stuff that happens over time. So there's really nothing that I can do other than take time and grow. So it just kind of, yeah, I guess that's kind of a tough thing. I just take everything that they say with a grain of salt, because not everybody agrees with it. But
it's just like any other sport where it's objective. Believe me, being a baseball pitcher, I understand that completely with the umpires. Don't even get me started on that. But if we were to talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at when it comes to your bodybuilding, when it just comes to your overall life? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved if we were to talk a year from today?
well, I think I'm going to take this next year off to grow. So I would like to be getting ready to start a prep for my pro debut for 2021, which will be my 30th. I'm around my 30th birthday. That's kind of what I'm thinking right now, but I don't know. We'll see. I'll get 6 months in. I'll get the itch back. So, but I would like to be getting ready for that. I like to be growing a little bit, just thickening up, making my weak muscles a little denser. Obviously, keep keep up with my following. Keep telling my story. Uh, Making sure that my business, the one that I work with, Adam, is growing and getting constantly better. I would like to be able to be posing a lot more girls over time, like even with Skype or FaceTime, anything like that.
Yep. Yeah, and that's great. And if you were able to go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
I would say just keep doing what you're doing because everything happens at the right time for the right reason. And for when I was 18, 19, I didn't even think I was going to see 26. So, and it was weird because I was okay with it. I wasn't like, oh, that's crazy. You shouldn't be thinking that. I was just like, oh, okay. But I would tell her, everything happens for a reason. So just pay attention.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't be like me and pull like a Back to the Future 2 and give like all the bets for like all the future sporting events or something like that to yourself and be like, hey,
No.
you're gonna be a millionaire by 20 or whatever. Yeah, no, I would try that, but yeah, otherwise, I'd say the same thing to me too, because like, yeah, it wouldn't have led me to this point if and nothing if I try to change anything. But now, lastly, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Shout out to all the people that have been following me for so long. I thank you guys for your support, and I hope that me continually telling my story continues to help you guys keep you motivated, keep you going. And shout out to my coach, Adam Casey, for getting me to become a pro.
Yeah, and that's again, shout out, and again, I'll leave a link to all of her stuff down below. But lastly, I mean, there's so many people that I think need to have guidance when it comes to their weight loss journey. And there's, I mean, there's so many excuses that you hear, but I always say for people just to take that first step into the gym is probably the hardest thing, because once you step into a gym, I always say it's very hard to walk out without getting a workout in. What advice do you have for anyone out there who's maybe struggling to get that first step into the gym and really start their transformation?
Honestly, go buy yourself a pair of shoes or a new workout outfit or a new bottle of water or whatever, new earphones, something that's going to keep you motivated, a new pre workout, a new BCAA, something that is going to keep you motivated to go. Um, if you buy yourself something, if you invest in yourself, it will keep that motivation high. And then you'll get into a routine after so long. And then it'll be like you can't not go.
Yeah. I totally agree. And again, Rachel, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the podcast. I mean, it was so great talking to you. I really, really appreciate it. And we wish you nothing but the best in, all of your future endeavors. And again, a link to all of her stuff down below, and just everyone go and give her a follow. I mean, it's just so inspiring. And what also, just lastly, what does that mean to you, knowing that, I mean, you've helped inspire so many people and that your journey really does matter for a lot of people?
It means the world to me because honestly, that's all I've ever wanted to do is help people, however I could. And this is the best way that I can do it is to share my story and to help people stay motivated to make their own story. And it really warms me every single time I hear somebody, like, hey, listening to you or watching you has kept me going. And I appreciate it, even just those little things.
Yep. Absolutely. And again, you guys cannot thank her enough. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.